Last but not least, we're going to look at the relationship theories. These are the theories that you're going to use in your advice column responses. I would tell you to thoroughly read pages 238 in your textbook up until page 246. Those are going to outline all of the theories. If you don't do that, you're not going to do well on that assignment. There's no possible way for you to pick the right theory based on the scenario of the relationship until you've actually read through these. So even listening to me isn't going to be enough. You need to hear it at least twice, and that would be ideal, is that you listen to this and then you read it, or you read it and then you listen to this. Either way is going to be more effective to helping you get this information. So the first theory we're going to talk about is the attraction theory. And there is a principle of similarity that says we like people who are like us. When they are similar to us in age, physical characteristic, abilities, race, nationality, intelligence, and attitudes, we like them more. We like people that look, act, and think like we do. Age is going to be part of this. Education level is going to be part of this. Religion is going to be part of this. There is a sense that says, well, opposites attract, so that may be true. Sometimes a more dominant person may be attracted to somebody who's a little bit more submissive, not as talkative, not as outgoing. But generally speaking, they probably have a lot of other similarities outside of their social behavior that make that relationship work. So don't necessarily fall into the trap that, well, opposites attract. Well, that's true, but without certain key similarities on issues, the relationship is not going to succeed. Proximity, you like the people that live close by you, that are in your classrooms, that you can interact with easily. It's more difficult to fall in love with somebody who is a million miles away, although with Facebook now and a lot of the other social mediums, it's a little bit easier to do that. But for the most part, it's easier to maintain a relationship with somebody close by. Reinforcement, you're attracted to people who give you rewards. People do favors for you. People that justify your behavior for you. People that support you. You're going to view that as reinforcement and further be attracted to them. You're also going to like people that have a physical attractiveness to you and a personality that you find stimulating. Socioeconomic, how much money they make, and also their educational background is going to be of utmost importance. It's very rare that you find a doctor married to a plumber. I'm not saying that it's unlikely. For example, I know that the chair of the communication department here at Chandler Gilbert is married to a plumber, and they have a very happy, successful relationship. But that is not a rule of thumb that you will find out there, generally speaking, in society. And then last but not least is this reciprocity of liking, and that just means we initiate relationships with the people we think like us. We want to be liked, and so we seek out the people that we feel are going to have the highest odds of liking us. The next theory is the relationship rules theory, and again, this is one you can use for your advice column responses, and it depends on the actual relationship. That's what's going to determine the rules. So in friendship rules, well, what do you have? Well, sometimes we believe that a rule is you have to stand up for each other, you have to share information, you have to demonstrate emotional support, you have to offer to help them when they need it, you have to make them feel happy. All of those things are rules that we want our friends to follow. And when those rules are violated, the relationship starts to be stressed. And it starts to then, again, be disintegrated. And that's really something that we can control just by being a good friend. Standing up for them and doing all those things we talked about. Now, romantic relationships have a whole nother set of rules. Some of the things that I said about friendship rules, those apply, but the romantic rules are listed on page 241. Be real, open, and genuine. That means share things with each other. Have similar attitudes. Express them. It's very rare that you find a Republican married to a Democrat. Recognize that we have lives beyond this relationship. Spend time together. Obtain rewards. That means you do something nice for me and I get a reward. And then experience kind of a magic when you're together. It's that feeling of, I can't even explain it, but I just feel alive when I'm with them. Most of us are looking for that. That's what we classify as our soulmate. It's somebody that just fills that empty place in us like nobody else can. And then there's some family rules. So what things can you talk about? Can you talk about drug use and alcohol abuse if you did that when you were younger? Or is that something that you could never share with your family? Would you ever talk to them about the misdeeds you did as a child and maybe the lies you told to them about where you were and what you were doing? Or do you not talk about that? Some families, they don't allow you to talk politics. They just don't think it's an appropriate thing to talk about. And then how can you talk about something? Do you just kind of gloss over it? Can you really challenge somebody's ideas if they don't agree with you? Or are you not allowed to do that because it's just not nice to do that to family members? You can do it with friends or coworkers, but we don't do that in a family. And then what things can you talk to about what? So, for example, if you need money, is that something you should talk to your mom or your dad about? And if you have relationship issues, do you usually go talk to your mom or your dad? So those are some rules as well. And then there's some workplace rules. I'm not going to get into those. They're certainly important on page 242, and many of you, that is where you spend the most of your time communicating. So you might want to review those. I think number one is work very hard. And sometimes we have that violation broken. That rule is broken often. And you dislike the other person, your coworker, because they just don't look like they work hard. Well, that's a valid complaint because it's a rule. It's a rule that when you go to work, you work hard. But there's other things. Be polite. Don't form romantic relationships. Don't reveal company policies to people that work at competing firms. And be cooperative with the people you work with, especially when you're working with teams. So those are the rules that we hope people follow. And when those rules are broken, the relationship will suffer. Next is the relationship dialectics theory. This is actually the relationship I did most of my research on when I was in graduate school, because to me it's the most interesting of all the interpersonal communication theories. And there's basically three opposites that we try to manage in our relationships. And the first is the open sense of relationship and the closed sense of relationship. So closed means it's just you and I, nobody else is a part of this. Open is you kind of can go see who you want. So exclusive relationships are closed. We're just kind of dating. They see other people. That's open. The next one is autonomy, which means your independence, and the connection, which is the intimacy. You will find couples that are so far over on the intimacy continuum that they have no independence. They've lost their friends. Really, the only interaction they have is with their spouse and coworkers. They don't have any real friends or anybody that they relate to outside of it. And it's important that we do both. There needs to be connection in our relationship, but we also need to maintain a sense of independence. That sense of independence shouldn't threaten our relationship, but we should be able to move along this continuum at different times of our relationship to be intimate, but then to be independent. Last but not least is the novelty continuum and predictability. So one end you would have novelty, the other end you would have predictability. That means that relationships that it becomes so predictable, so stable, so comfortable, sometimes are relationships that get to be in dire straits, meaning severe trouble, because that predictability becomes boring and we long for new experiences. We long for some kind of novelty, and those things are very important to do. So again, we should have times of stability, but we should also embrace new experiences and try to make the relationship exciting. So if we look at relationship dialectics theory, we know that relationships have to have these three continuums at work, and we don't necessarily want to be on one side or the other. Now, the open and closed exclusivity, I think it's also the desire for being close to somebody, but also being able to, again, have kind of a circle of other people that support you. It's not necessarily just the faithfulness aspect, but I think it's almost a controlling sense that when we feel like we're in a really highly exclusive relationship, meaning that we're very, very scared of what would happen if we ever dared to meet somebody else that we were interested in, that kind of controlling nature can be somewhat threatening to a relationship and can lead to its demise as well. So don't think it just has to do with faithfulness, although it does. It's a little bit more broad than your textbook lets on to. The strategies that we use when there's those imbalances in those tensions is the first thing, you can just accept it and say, this is how it may be. It's okay that there is more closeness and we don't have our autonomy. We can't be kind of outside of this relationship right now because we just don't have time. The second thing you can do is exit the relationship, and you can say, you know what, this isn't for me. It's become so boring and stagnant. I need some novelty. I need some excitement, so I'm going to leave. And the third is to rebalance your life, and that means that you satisfy the need to do those things elsewhere. And that means if the relationship with your husband has gotten to be boring and predictable and you don't see any novelty coming out of it, well, then you may take your friends and go find novelty that way. You may find a new hobby, and that's how you get your novelty. And you're not necessarily doing that as part of the couple, but you're taking on your own needs and saying, I can satisfy my own needs. I don't always have to have my partner helping me do that.